All right, let's get into the topics. Meta, you're starting us off. What is your topic?
I think I'm going to talk about all the swanky games that I played while at Gen Con. So my fiance, bless her in every way, goes through before we go to Gen Con, and she actually makes a list of all these games that look interesting. We'll go back and forth, and she'll link them to me, and I'll check them out, read them out, and then we'll say, like, we both think they're interesting. We'll put it, and she'll print it out, and she'll put it in this binder. And it's either a game that we'll look for or try to demo, depending on what it costs and whatnot. So for the majority of like 2 of our days, we just go through the exhibition hall, trying out games that we could find and whatnot. And I had the luck to run through, I would say, about 13 games around there, demoing and the like that we either bought or didn't buy.
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, it's a fair amount. So. But I wanted to go through them really quickly because I felt they all should get a shout out at the very least, since we did play through them because they looked interesting. And I want to start off with a game called Seikatsu. It's an interesting game, to say the least.
Is it Japanese?
It is, yeah, it's based on Japanese. It's kind of based on creating,
or whatever.
yeah, it's Japanese themed.
No, it's French.
Yeah, it's French. It's Norwegian. The game is essentially based around the fact that you're trying to create a garden, and you're trying to make the garden as pleasant as possible, but from your point of view. Now, the game is generally played with 3 players, which kind of form a triangle around this garden, and you set down these markers that have flowers and birds on them. And the base of the game is to try to match up birds in the first phase, and then once the garden is done, you add up how many flowers from your perspective are in a column. To get points as well, and those give you more points, and you'll try to create the best looking garden from your perspective.
So it's Crane Clan, the board game.
Pretty much, yeah. I would say it's Crane Clan the board game. Actually, in fairness, the crab love rock gardens, so so there you go.
They like looking at them. They just don't want to deal with making them.
Oh, they make them.
It kind of reminds me of Takenoko. But
I've never played it. I couldn't say.
The front of the box definitely looks like it to me.
You have to build up bamboo in the Imperial Garden, but it's got a panda that goes around and tries to eat them.
It's an asshole of a panda.
Yeah, it's kind of it's cute.
It's the Emperor's panda.
He's still an asshole. But he's an
just don't say it to
asshole.
his face.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
you can't tell the Emperor that.
just don't let him hear that.
Panda's a total jerk, Emperor.
It's interesting that it's. Oh wait,
What?
Sorry, you said 3 players?
It could be 1 to 4, but
okay.
It's kind of designed around the ideas that you play 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a weird playing number.
It is.
But it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It is. It's a very simple game. It's not complex by any means. The game will probably take you, I would say, truth be told, they put down their playing time is like 15 to 30 minutes. I would say that's actually pretty much on the ball. Not very complicated. We didn't end up getting it. It just wasn't. It didn't meet. Truth be told, it's not because the game was bad or it cost too much. It's actually pretty low even on price. I don't remember what the price range was, but I don't think it went higher than 40. I think that's actually probably exorbitantly high for the game. But it just our own game group is generally 5 to 6 people, so unfortunately it wouldn't really see much love in there. But it was still a very quick game. If you're looking for something that's kind of shorter and simple, this is definitely
the physical pieces look real nice too, like the tokens or whatnot.
The tokens are actually solid. They're not cardboard or anything. They're like plastic, so you are. It's not like you're holding just kind of cheap items. They actually did pretty nice with those. So give them props. It was really nice. It actually looks very beautiful too. If you look at the image, you can look it up on Board Game Geek, which is pretty much where you can look at all these games you want to talk about. So the next one is, and I'm going to say this later, is Radiant Offline Battle Arena, but we'll talk about that one later.
Yep.
After that, we tried a game called Menu Masters. This was actually not one we had looked up at all. We just happened to be at the booth, and my fiance loves herself some pins, and they told her that everything that she played, she could get a pin for. And I was like, I see this is my life now.
Did you just grind out pins?
No, we did not.
Oh.
We did not sing on it. He told us, like, we're not grinding pins. This is not an MMO.
So it's like Overcooked board game.
It is. It's pretty much Overcooked the board game. You have it's a pretty simple game. You have your chef. There's nothing really different between the chefs themselves, but they do have like their own bio, and they have generally themes. You have Hispanic food, you have Oriental food, you have European cuisine, generally with more towards one direction, like Hispanic, but mostly like Mexican, Asian, but mostly Japanese, European, but mostly French, so on and so forth. But the characters themselves don't really do anything. Basis of the game is that you are attempting to meet the most orders, and sell the most food, and become the best restaurant in the area. And to do this is broken down in different phases. You have your first phase where you essentially you can assign people either to you have guys who work for you, and you have a certain amount of money you start with, and you can either send them to go to the store, you can send them to the bank to collect a little bit of money from you for you, or you can for the day take ownership of that store. So when people buy something from the store, they, instead of paying the bank, it goes to you. But you can't buy from the store that you own, because that's called price fixing and it's very illegal. So but you can do that, and the game changes depending on how many players you have, which is anywhere from 2 to 5 players, and how many stores you have. But each store is its own specific store. You have a vegetable store, a meat store, and a dessert store. And then if you play 4 players or more, you have a general store which covers each one of those. So it has 1 vegetable, 1 meat, 1 dessert. You're trying to create whatever is on the menu that you have, which you'll get. You'll get 2 cards that are like your family recipe cards. These are always there. You just make them, and they're just always there. So they're always a viable option to make. And then you have other meals that people want you to make or that you need to cook up, and those will get drawn to you at the beginning of the round. So the idea is to kind of balance things around. The trick is that anytime somebody goes to a store, they go into a line. The problem is that the bigger the line is, the person at the front will get first dibs, but for every person that's in line behind them, they have to pay that many coins to buy their ingredients. So being last in line means you might not get your ingredient, but you'll make the person pay like 3 coins instead of 1 for the item that they want. So we didn't pick up the game. It's very simple. The game will probably take a little bit of time. They say like 20 to 40 minutes, but I would probably say it might take you an hour.
At least like at the start.
Yeah, at least to start. Once you get the game down, you could probably meet the 24 marker. But as your first playthrough, it's probably going to take you an hour. We didn't pick it up though, but we did think it was interesting, but it just wasn't enough for us to pick up. But it was still a fun game. After that, we went and happened to just come across this game. Again, it's not one of the ones we had on the list. It was called Cultist in Cthulhu.
What's even the point of this finder?
Well, every other game that I have over here will be on the list. It's just these 2 games were not on the list.
Okay.
This looks like one of those bad, like, meme cartoon pictures.
I know it is. The game is really simple, super simple. It's pretty much just taking. It's kind of like it's just a very simplistic look on the game. It's very silly in regards to it, but essentially, the whole objective of the game is that you're given a ritual card. You're trying to meet the card. You get cultists and whatnot. That allows you to roll. If you meet a certain roll, you put success on it. If you get like a 3, you don't have nothing happens. And if you get 3 2s or 1s together, your cultist goes insane and you lose him. It's a very simple game. There's not honestly a lot to talk about. You'd be better off just looking up the game. But it's a very fun game. It's very quick and easy. You could teach this even to your kids, and it's very family friendly. So it was a lot of fun. We actually picked it up, and we just want to play a game really fast without investing tons of time into it.
So you can have up to 8 players.
Yeah, you can have 8 players.
That's pretty good.
I mean, you can probably play with. I mean, you can see just from the picture itself, like Evil Awakens and whatnot. He's got like a cup of coffees and his slippers with a newspaper in the morning. It's very satirical in its own sense. The game says 20 to 35 minutes, and I would say that if your first game, that's probably spot on, but games after that are just going to be way quicker. This is a very fast game. It will not last all that long once you really know everything about it. So we actually did pick this one up. We thought it was worth the price range. I think it was only like $20. So after that comes a game called Kaiju Crush. This was a very interesting game. Our buddy brought it to our attention. You play as obviously a giant monster. There are 4 giant monsters in there.
Also known as a kaiju.
Yes. We've talked about that like multiple times throughout our podcast. So, the game is 2 to 4 players. The objective is to blow up as much of the city as you can. The general, you can get into fights with other kaiju.
Do general kaiju things.
Just general kaiju things. Honestly, it is kaiju the game. Your objective is to blow up as much of the building as you can, fight other kaiju. Your kaiju do have special abilities. 2 of them, there's like if you can look it up and whatnot, but there's generally like a kind of a rock, paper, scissors thing going on, and it gets a little bit more complicated than that because there's technically a rock, paper, scissors inside of a rock, paper, scissors. It's a little weird. But it is generally fun. The games are generally pretty quick. The general objective is that it will kind of change depending on cards because there's special cards that are laid out as you play the game that kind of give you bonus points at the end of the day or define. You might be like, for instance, there might be a card called Hoarder, which gives you points if you have the most of that type of building type you destroy, which there is economy, transportation, power, and there's like one other one. But there's 4 different types of buildings that you can destroy that add to a certain category. But then there might be a game where instead of Hoarder, where you want the most of that type to get extra points, it's like you want the least. You want to be the most diverse. You want to have the least of those type of cards. So every game will change up a little bit on how the points are earned and how you want to play your character. But you're still generally playing the ideas that I want to blow up the buildings, I want to fight the other kaijus, and I want to have a great time doing it. So we actually ended up picking this one up. It wasn't all that costly. I think we picked it up for 30 or 35. There is replayability on the game. It says around 45 minutes of playing time. I would actually say for even our first game, just demoing and learning the game, that's actually precisely on the dot. So you will only get faster as you play the game more and more and more. So yeah.
It looks cool.
I like the art for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art's really cool for it. Again, it was really fun. We were actually decently surprised. So much so that even though it's only max of 4 players, we still picked it up all the same.
No, next game has best art.
Yeah, Unicornus Knights. I know exactly where this came from. Japan. I mean, the name alone gives it away. But if the designer's name, Seiji Kanai.
All you gotta do is look at the box. Too.
So,
It's something.
It's something.
It looks like freaking Cordelia's on the front of the box. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, that's why it looks like a trash can.
Wow. I will say that.
Wow, Mal. Shots fired.
Yeah, if you like Fire Emblem, the art actually kind of reminds me of that a bit. So you might.
Yeah, it's very Fire Emblem.
Yeah, it's very Fire Emblem. The game, however, despite its name and despite its cover, is actually very fun. To try to keep it very short, you're essentially an emperor kind of came in and kicked out the princess of our kingdom, took it over, converted everything over, and the princess didn't take to it so well. So she decided to go YOLO, picked up a spear, picked up a sword, got on her unicorn, and is gonna make a beeline for the emperor, regardless of the consequences that happen. So the game kind of goes into where you play her allies, her advisors in some way. You can either play like the old loyal knight, her general of her army, etc., etc. And you're kind of trying to take down all the bad guys, which are very varied. It's very, if you've played like any Japanese fighting game, you have all your tropes. You have like robotic girl, you have a necromancer, vampire, dragon dude. You have magical enemy, upper class noble villain. It's like it just hits genres all over the place.
It's like the Sacred Blacksmith complete lineup.
It's all over the place with the characters. But so you essentially want to create, like, you want to recruit knights to aid you because they'll give you bonus health as well as they'll take hits for you. You want to try to get resources because that's what's going to allow you to move across land, because you are for every knight that you have in your army, you have to pay an extra resource when moving with them because they have mouths to feed. So you kind of have to learn to balance, like, when I kind of want to let them take a hit and move over here, then recruit up really fast, and then try to get some resources now that I've got an army to march with me. The biggest draw of the game, however, is the fate card system in it. Whenever, as far as I understand, I haven't actually had a chance to fully play through the game. It was getting through a demo, and we did end up picking it up because we were actually very impressed with it. Whenever you end a conflict with a villain against your character, or they end their turn next to you, or next to the princess, they draw a fate card. And that fate card can do anything. And I mean literally anything. They could have the villain immediately fall in love with the princess or your character and join your side. Immediately switch to your side and decide that, hey, I'm going to fight with you now. Which happened to us in our demo game. I was playing the old Loyal Knight. I went to fight the Necromancer and flipped over a fate card. She immediately fell in with my old knight, fell in love with him, and I had her just bouncing around with me for the rest of the game. It was fantastic. It was one of the most hilarious things that happened. But it means that essentially anytime you encounter an enemy or the like, what might happen with them, your relationship with them, can change. And it does affect you, both in die rolls and mechanics, but in the abilities that you might get from them.
Does it have a tsundere card?
I do not know, but I will let you know when I will find out when I actually play this game for...
I actually wanted to betray my comrades and join you. Baka.
I mean, there's even a villain in the game that forces you to defeat him before you defeat the Emperor, which is not easy because, again, you have to remember that the princess takes her own turns, and she just makes a beeline, regardless of what's in front of her that could even kill her. She's making a beeline for the Emperor, and the Emperor is not a pushover. This dude looks like Zeus. This dude hits the gym every day, never skips leg day. This guy is beefy. So it was actually a lot of fun. We enjoyed the crap out of it. We had some really good laughs at kind of the silliness of this princess. There was points where we actually had to body block her to force her to take less direct and harder routes, just to slow her down so she wouldn't kill herself. It was actually kind of funny. I would say though that 60 to 90 minutes is probably 90 minutes is probably going to be your first gameplay time for their first match of it. Probably longer, just depending on how many people you have. We had 3 people and it took us 90 minutes, so 4 people probably going to only increase that. But as time goes on, things will get quicker. I would actually say it's not super complex of a game. As simple as as much as there's going on, not that complex. It's pick up your resources, move your men, roll some die. Is it win? Is it lose? Done. And that's it. You can play 2 to 6 players on the game. There is some variation in how your princess plays. She actually has 4 different variant cards, which change how she plays as well. So there's a lot of variety in this game. You are going to get
replay value.
Yeah, there's a lot of replay value. So this is a game you can pick up, and you will play more times because each time you play it, things will be different. Not only the villains that you face, but the board layout as well as the princess that you might be escorting this time. So that was that. We ended up picking up. We thought it was great. Next game was Planetarium. I wanted to start off and to say this. The artwork for this game is phenomenal. It's beautiful. I don't know who the artist is. On Board Game Geek, they actually say it's Dan May and Greg May, so I guess I do know now. But
oh wow, yeah.
It is gorgeous, beautiful artwork. Yeah. That's really what caught our eye on this game. Just the artwork and the design for it. It is phenomenal. If nothing else, I would get posters of this game's artwork and put it up. It's just that good to me.
A lot of planetary shots.
Yeah, there's tons of that shots because that's what the game is actually about. It is about planets. You're essentially in a solar system, and there are tokens that represent either air or just air-based items, actual physical solid landmass, iron. There's different materials that are set around the solar system, and you've got 4 planets, 2 which are gaseous and 2 which are not. They're I guess solid. The rocky terrain ones. And essentially everybody takes turns, and the objective in this game is really to force the evolution of these planets, to design them in a way that best suits the cards that you have for their evolution. You're not so much trying to terraform them, you're simply just creating a planet that best works with whatever it is that you have.
Yeah, I'm looking at a line. It's like sulfur dioxide, dioxide vents,
Yep.
and giant impact, and then hot Jupiter, and it's like low evolution, high evolution, final evolution.
Yeah, there's different cards.
They look-
They're they're all really cool. I'll
Yeah.
be honest. It's really cool stuff. And then depending on how you build that planet will either decide if it can sustain life or not, which will mix into your final evolution of cards because if it can sustain life, that's sometimes a criteria on high evolution or final evolution cards, which are worth far more points. There's also cards where it cannot sustain life. It has to be a non-sustaining life card to actually get those done as well. So it is a pretty quick game. 45 minutes, 1 to 4 players. I would actually say that's pretty much spot on. Our demo was cut short. They actually cut it down a little bit. So for the first game, I might go longer, but it's not a complex game. It is very fun. Yeah, that's about all I got to say on that. So next game up is Element, which I want to start off saying is that if you've ever played Go, this game is a lot like that. And that's about as close as you get. I would say at best it's probably a spiritual successor. You're playing essentially the role of...
Go to.
Go to. You're playing the role of these monks, and they all kind of represent the element of the color that they are. But the point of the game is that you're trying to capture the monk to your right, while not being captured by the monk to your left. And this is done playing the 4 elements, which are essentially your go chips, if you will. But each element has ways that they interact not only with another element, both being defeated by an element and both by defeating an element, but they also interact with with themselves, allowing you different bonuses. And just to go them very shortly, the water token essentially creates a flowing river. And as you place that token down, it'll pull that river, and you can turn and move it up to as many spaces as there are water tokens that are linked to one another. So you can have a river, you can have like a river like down the bottom right corner of the board suddenly move up into the top left because somebody placed a token that allowed it to move. So it can keep, as long as you keep placing another water token in front of it, you can keep making that river move around and expand and turn in new directions. Fire, if you place a token of fire down and you place a token on any side of it, that's another fire token, that will cause a third one to appear on the opposite side. It creates a firewall, if you will. And that will continue to happen. So fire will always continue to expand out on opposite end that you put a fire token down on. Earth tokens allow you to create essentially mountain ranges, which are very restricting in how you can move through them. Normally, you can move diagonally through spaces, but if there's a mountain range that is set up because you stacked Earth tokens up and they're connected to other Earth tokens, you can no longer move diagonally through them. They require different ways to be moved around. And then air, it allows you essentially a free movement, but also allows you to jump over things. The more tokens of air that you stack up on them, up to a max of 4, you will jump that many spaces, as well as not counting for a move on your turn. The general strategy between these is to utilize them to surround an opposing monk that you have, a guru, so that he can no longer move. And you're going to do this by pulling tokens from a bag. They're at random. It was actually very strategic. We actually had a lot more fun on this than we thought we were. It was actually one of the games we went into that we were iffy about. But we had a lot of fun. It's very strategic because of the moving board and the way that elements can actually get rid of elements like water defeats fire, fire defeats air, air defeats earth because you can just jump over a mountain range, and earth defeats water. Gave us a lot of ways to kind of like stop somebody or to take control of something that they had been building up for their purpose. The next person could take control of that and use it for their benefit instead. It was a lot of fun actually. So it's only 4 players max though. And 60 minutes, I would say, is actually probably the only game maybe in this list I would argue is longer than expected, at least until you get a hang of it. Then I would actually say it's kind of almost the opposite, where like normally games get faster once you learn them. I would say this game actually probably increases in time as you learn it, just because of the strategy that's involved with it. It's actually really well done. After that is Fate of the Other Gods. We were able to demo this one. This is a game that I thought was looking kind of interesting, and my fiance thought was pretty interesting as well. Not as much as I. But we ended up playing the game and kind of left downhearted on it. Essentially, long story short, you're not playing the investigators. You're playing the cultists in this game. You want to summon up the elder god that is on your side. Each of the elder gods has their own abilities to them. But that's about it. Everything else is pretty symmetrical in playstyle. Your elder gods have their own abilities, though, so that's the asymmetry to it all. The general idea is that you want to keep sacrificing them so you can get more points to get closer to summoning up your elder god. And there's ways to do this. You can take control if you have more occultists than everybody else out, but you need a minimum as well. You can actually take control of that area, and it'll give you extra bonuses. You'll have spells that require meeting certain color requirements that you can lay down and prep that will give you bonuses. You can curse your opponents. You can get a bonus. You can do different things with the spells. It allows a lot of variety in that regard. But the game is, I believe it was $60, and at 1 to 4 players, a $60 game, and not having, I would say, tons of replayability, was kind of steep in our eyes. It's interesting, but it didn't really keep us there. We'd play the game again, but I mean, you kind of already know what you're getting into when you play the game. The spells help keep variety up and give some replayability to it, but the general core of the game, fundamentally, a lot of what the game is about is going to be the same thing over and over. So, it is only 4 players as well, which was another problem. I believe they're coming out with an expansion later on that will add more Elder Gods and allow you to play up to 6 players. But as of right now, there's only 4 out. 30 to 90 minutes. I would say 90 minutes is probably right when you're first learning the game. It took us a while to get through it. The game art looks interesting, though. It's not bad game art. I actually like that a lot. The board was very cool, too, because the board is just like this circular platform. There's a lot of cool stuff about it, but it wasn't amazingly awesome, I think. So, next game up, damn it, Obs.
Keep going.
Is Fantasy Realms. It's poker. It's effectively poker. And I want to start off like that, but it's not actually poker. Fantasy Realms is a very quick game. 3-6 players, although you can actually play 2 players as well. 20 minutes game time is damn well on the spot. It's a very simple game. You're essentially you draw cards, and you're trying to create the best realm, either by having the best military, creating a very hazardous realm for your opponent through like weather effects or land, or you're trying to create a very magical realm using like the best and strongest spells, wizards at its side. What you're essentially trying to do is create the best hand, because at the end of the game, you're going to lay down your 7 cards and you're going to add up the points on them, and then you're going to add in their bonuses or their penalties, and then you're going to see who has the most points, and whoever has the highest wins. And that's pretty it. We actually enjoyed ourselves with the game. It was pretty nice. It was very cool that it was a very short play time. It's also very cool that it has a lot of players that can actually play the game. It's pretty enjoyable.
Cool.
So we did pick up that one. So here's the game I'm going to say is probably the worst one we went through. I'm sorry, AEG, but this was not that great of a game. Custom Heroes. If you've ever played, it's not Mystic Vale. What is it called? Valley of the Mystics? Something. It's another game that's akin to this. It's also made by AEG. But the concept is that you essentially have these cards, have these plastic sleeves, and as you get more cards from the deck as you buy them, you put them on the card, and it modifies things about the card.
Oh yeah, I can see like all the little pips.
Yep,
Yeah.
all the little pips on the card and whatnot. You can't overwrite any pips that were there before. But overall, that's the premise of the game. It kind of sucks for custom hero, though. The concept is that you want to get rid of your hand. And you can either do that by playing multiples of the same cards, or cards of higher value, as long as it meets, as long as it is either it's a higher value and is the same amount of cards that the person that started the round played down. Otherwise, you have to pass your turn. You can get equipment cards that change the values on your cards or give them extra abilities to do this. But ultimately, that is the aim of the game, is to get rid of all your cards, which give you points and allow you to draw equipment cards for the next round. The only problem I have with this is that once you are done with the round, and everybody's taken their turn, gotten their equipment cards, their points to spend for abilities, as well as their victory tokens, you take all the cards, shuffle them together, and then deal out new cards to everybody, which means that the cards that you might have built up last round are probably in somebody else's hands now. Which, it kind of sucks, because that meant that the card I had built was eventually going to go to somebody else, and I might get a hand, especially in the beginning of the game when nobody's had a lot of customizations yet. You're probably going to get a hand where you might not have any abilities in any of the heroes. So you're starting like you're playing the first round of the game again. So your playstyle and your winning for it you really don't get to see the cards and the heroes that you built up. So while it's custom heroes, it may not be your custom heroes. And that kind of sucked. We ultimately decided to pass on it. We were actually kind of looking forward to this game, but we ultimately did pass on the game. It is 2 to 6 players. It is about 45 minutes playing time. I would say it's probably going to be way longer than that, especially if you play with more people. We had 6 players. It was definitely more than 45 minutes playing time. Yeah, I would say I don't remember the price range of the game. I didn't bother to ask. That's just how disinterested I was in the game after playing it. So.
Because I like this. I mean, I know we keep saying that it seems like these games all have good artwork, but I kind of like the artwork on it. And it's like,
yeah, it's not bad artwork. It's actually pretty cool stuff. I mean, they hit all the archetypes of like heroes. They have your edgies for obs, and then they have like robots and superheroes and cat girls and shit like that. So you have all of it under the sun, but it just wasn't satisfying because you never really got to see the fruits of your labors from building up your custom heroes with the equipment cards that you put on them. Next game that we played is the last one. It's the 3 on this list that we did not have on the list of games of like the 30 to 40 games that we had. Was one. It's called Vast, the Crystal Cavern. I only want to just give a quick drive-by on this one just because the game costs about $60.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon for 40.
Yeah, that's the funny part, and I was going to point that out afterwards, is that you can get the bloody game on Amazon for $40. So,
has it been out for a while?
I don't know.
I think oh wait, no, never mind. I'm misreading something. But
I thought it came out during Gen Con or a little bit before or after it. But
it is the highest rated game of all the ones you've had so far on Board Game Geek.
Yeah, it is, it's kind of funny actually about that. It is definitely, it's very asymmetrical. The catch of the game is that everybody is playing a different part of the game, and it is 1 to 5 players. But essentially, I didn't see all the factions, but I did see 4 of them. You have the knight who is going through the Crystal Caverns to defeat the dragon. You have the goblins who just live there and are trying to continue to grow up, build their tribes and whatnot. You have the dragon, who's been slumbering about a bit, and he's about to waken soon, and then when he wakes up, he's going to fly out of the cavern and show everybody the power of the dragon. And then you have the cave itself, which is a playable character. Somebody is actually playing the cave. So their whole objective is to expand really quickly and then collapse in on everybody and crush them all. Which I thought was probably the funniest part of the whole game.
I like that.
But it's very asymmetrical. Your objectives, how you play the game, how you play your character, oftentimes it comes with either cards of a deck that have nothing to do with anybody else. There may not be a deck for other characters. They have very different focuses. How they power up, how they progress along is very different. Like the dragon wants to gain pride, and he does this by either eating goblins, getting treasure, unmarking areas that have like events on them. He wants to do that, but the knight's generally trying to go around grabbing treasure, defeating goblins, going through completing objectives and little quests that they have and stuff like that. If my memory serves me right, I didn't actually play it, so I was kind of more focused on me being the dragon. But they generally have different ways of going about trying to get their victory and powering themselves up, and the knight I think even gets equipment to help with that as well. So it's very different. It was really interesting in that fact, but I don't know if it was worth $60 for it. Though at 40, I would say it's probably worth it at that point. It's very interesting though. The game was fun for what we played. The artwork is very intriguing. It's very
I've been
different.
looking through the pictures on Board Game Geek, and I'm loving the art.
Yeah, it's almost Fable-ish cartoon style. I don't know how else to put it. It kind of reminds me of It reminds me of Calvin and Hobbes, actually, the art design.
Kind of, yeah, but like fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting game, but we just didn't pick it up because it was $60, and we just weren't fully certain on it. We actually didn't get to play through much of this demo. We got 2 rounds, and that was about it. They were only doing 2 rounds of demo, so.
Yeah, it looks like it's a pretty time-intensive game.
Yeah. They show 1 to 5, like I said, already 5
Especially
players.
since, like, every time you play it again, if you have a new role, you kind of have to learn that.
Yeah. It will take you time to learn. I don't know all the factions. Like I said, the 4 that are the ones that they had out. They had a 5th faction apparently, but I don't remember what.
It looks like there's like Goblin's Cave, Dragon, Knight, and then some other dude, maybe a thief.
I think it's the thief. Yeah.
Yeah.
My fiance just told me it's a thief. She's like, it's a thief. So there's a thief in the fight as well. He's just trying to steal everything. So there you go. Next one up is 10-minute heist, the Wizard's Tower. This game is super simple. You are playing the best thieves in the world. The wizard has left his tower for the evening. You have all decided to sneak in and steal as much of his stuff as you can, and then vamonos before he returns. It is quite literally a 10-minute game. I would actually say even shorter than that. 2 to 5 players. The way the game is set up is that all the cards are set up in a I think about 5 or 6 columns, and then about I think 5 or 6 cards across in a row. I don't remember how many, so don't quote me on that one. But it goes down, and essentially you start at the top of the tower, and you go down each floor. But once you go down a floor, you can't go back up. You can go side to side anywhere you want, but once you go down a floor, you are stuck on that floor. You can pass up as many floors as you want and stop anywhere you want, but you are stuck there. You cannot go back up. There are some cards that allow you to kind of get away with taking things that are higher up. Like there's the Blink Cloak or the Displacement Cloak, which allows you to steal 1 item, like that's anywhere, regardless if it's below or above you. It won't move you, but there's that. There's some other cards that allow you to trade cards with other thieves that have stolen stuff. So if you're really looking for something, you can do it, and so on and so forth. You're essentially trying to get the most of each type of card. You'll see the colors on if you go to Board Game Geek. You can see all the different colors of it. But you want either most of the colors. You want to be the first one out. Gives you the most points as well. You also want to have the least amount of cursed items, and then just having the highest value of items to give you points. And essentially the objective is to have the most points at the end of the game. We actually enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was very quick, entertaining.
Yeah.
So
I thought the art looked familiar. The artist is the same guy who did Imperial Settlers, which I have and like.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool. So, yeah. We actually ended up buying this game. It is very easy to play. It is very friendly for your children as well. So if you're looking for something where your kids can play, this is definitely something that will keep them entertained. It'll be an easy 10 minutes of distraction. And if they really like it, they can play it again. Very easy. So we picked that up as well. So the last game I've got here is Bemused. This was actually a very interesting game. The artwork is, I'm going to point this one out again, is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I'm looking like they've got like full art cards.
Oh yeah, all the cards have full on art for them for your characters. Wonderful choosing of colors to give a theme to each of the characters.
Yeah.
It is that's actually what picked us up on this game the most was the artwork. We just saw it. It is gorgeous. The Bemused is the name of the game. It is for 4 to 6 players. 15 to 30 minutes is actually spot on. The game is not that long. You are playing a type of artist in some shape or form, whether you be a poet, a singer, a musician, a thespian, whatever the case may be. You are essentially a deity that is trying to make this individual of yours, your muse, the greatest of all. But instead of trying to just, instead of doing it probably the easier way, which is making them the greatest of their ability, you decide that you're going to try to fuck everybody else over. And you're going to do that by either making them doubt themselves or dreading things, and eventually causing them to go insane and die. So, very roundabout way of, I guess, attaining the best, muse in the world. But that's the name of the game. Each of these muses of yours have different abilities that can affect the different cards. And each card is got a color and a symbol for it. That's actually, I want to specifically state this because they mentioned this out. This game is actually colorblind sensitive. It's friendly to them. So even if you have colorblind issues, this is a game that you can still play because all the symbols on there are based. They've got the colors just for the colors' sake of itself because it's really nice. But if you're colorblind, you can play this game without any issues whatsoever because they've designed the cards in a way that show you exactly what they can do, regardless of that. So they made mention of it, and I felt, that's actually pretty cool that they did it. So it is. So this is actually the highest scored one now on board for the Board Game Geek games at a 7.6.
Oh, I meant rank. Like this is rank 8,000. The other one was rank 500.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, you're right. That is ranked. I didn't even notice that. Huh.
Yeah. And then some of them haven't come out yet, so they don't have a rank.
Yeah. The game is actually pretty simple. Each, like I said, of the actors has the ability to change how certain cards play either on themselves or on other individuals around them. The biggest thing about the game is that regardless if you are dead, insane, or the like, is that you can still win.
Oh, that's good.
Even if you're a ghost. So even if you're taken out dead, once you're dead, your job is to try to kill as many other players as well, because that gives you the most points. If you are alive but not insane, you gain a number of points based on certain criteria. If you are insane, how that criteria works is changed, but you still gain points based on how well you play.
That's cool. You don't get kicked out and can't play.
Yep. Your general objective at that point is to kill people. The other thing to note is that you have a secret relationship with one of the other muses. This might be a good thing where you're trying to keep them alive. You want to keep them either in a certain state of mind or alive, or it might be where you hate them or want to see them dead, and you will stop at nothing to do so because that will give you bonus points at the end of the game if you meet your secret objective. Of course, who the person that you have the secret objective with is sometimes a mystery, but you can show it up early, and if you show it early, it will change it because the way the game, and I probably is a little bit too much in depth on it, but the way the game is if you show who your individual is, it doesn't tell them what your relationship is, just that this person is the person I have a relationship with. And essentially what happens is if you go insane and people don't know, you'll get a penalty because it flips over automatically to show people who it is. However, if you flip it up early while you're still sane, you'll take a penalty now, but when it flips back over, when you do go insane, you'll get a benefit for it. So you can decide to either flip it over, reveal it early, take the penalty now, or take it once you've gone insane. It's actually a really fun game. We had a lot of fun with this one. It was very quickly. I got killed right off like the bat. The second round in, I was dead, and I decided to kill everybody with me. It was actually a pretty funny game. We had a lot of fun just playing the game. I would recommend it. It's a little bit complex, but nothing that I would say that wouldn't stop you. I think the fact that it's just 6 players in general is really fun. So you can get generally a good gaming group in as well on it. The only problem I would say is that it apparently does have a minimum of 4 players. So you do need to have 4 from the start. You can't play this like 2 or 3. At least that I am aware of. It is meant to have 4 people in it. So, but yeah, these are all the games that we got to demo at Gencon and either picked up or are set aside. We had a lot more games that we did not get to play because they weren't out, and there were some games that we didn't buy that we wanted to because we had to demo the game because there were certain games out there like Rising Sun, which is $100. Beautiful, gorgeous game. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, the models are great.
Models are fantastic. The colors are splendidly used, but at $100, I am probably going to want to demo that game, which unfortunately was an event, so you actually had to pay $5 to just demo the bloody
Oh
game.
wow!
So
I mean-
would, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you didn't spend your whole day playing the new edition of Twilight Imperium.
No, I didn't do that. So
I did see people doing that.
You didn't?
I said I did see people doing
Oh
that.
wow!
Oh my god.
That's like a full day commitment.
I don't any game that requires a full day commitment is not a game I want to demo at Gen Con.
It
Oh,
looks
no.
like it looks just like the old game but with new, better art.
Ah.
Obviously, I'm sure it plays differently, but
Yeah,
it
I'm
looks
sure
like
there's been some rules changes. Maybe they've cut down the
Probably.
time by an hour or two.
So instead of 24 hours game time, it'll be 22. But yeah, so there were some games that were like that, but that was pretty much all the games we hit up.